Hello everybody, welcome to JTV. So JTV is a global Jewish channel, but I'm based in London. We've got a lot of Jewish viewers who are based in London, and so we were actually given the opportunity to speak to one of the candidates to be Mayor of London, the Conservative mayoral candidate, Shaun Bailey. We've also reached out to the Labour candidate, who's also currently Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, hoping to do an interview with him or waiting to hear back from him. But I actually think this will be quite interesting for our viewers. Not just in London, but around the world, because when it comes to Mayor of London, yes, it matters what their policies are for how they govern London, but I think this position in particular has a status, has a influence and a platform that extends far beyond London. It's what people call in politics soft power, the ability to influence the conversation. I think the voice of the Mayor of London actually really matters. And therefore, I think it's important that we make informed choices about who the Mayor of London is. And so for this interview, I want to get to know Shaun as a person and to also understand what he makes of some of the issues that really matter to Jewish people. Shaun Bailey, how's it going?
It's great, it's good to be here, good to be here.
Good to have you on JTV. So look, I feel like a lot of communities get annoyed where they feel like politicians just pandering to them and giving them the buzzwords they want to hear. So we're not going to do that. I'm not going to ask you to sing Hava Nagila. Actually, go on then. Give us a quick Hava Nagila.
Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila. Nobody wants to hear my singing voice.
That's pretty good, actually. Should we do a quick dance to Hava Nagila? Go on.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely.
Okay, let's do a quick Jewish quickfire before we get into the serious questions. So, favourite Jewish food?
Cream cheese and salmon bagel.
Ah, that'll go down very well in my household. Favourite Hebrew word?
Shalom.
Shalom, that's a good one.
Shalom. My mother-in-law uses it so much. So
oh yeah?
My children thought it's an English word.
You know it means peace as well as hello.
Yes.
Has lots of nice meanings to it. Favourite Yiddish word?
My Yiddish is not so good. Clue tell me a word that is Yiddish that I know, but I didn't know it was Yiddish.
My favourite Yiddish word is schwitz. Like you're schwitzing, like it's basically like you're sweating so much you're just exhausted, like after a long day, like, Ollie, can you quickly drop this right hand? No, I'm schwitzing, I'm exhausted like that.
Well, I did gymnastics for 22 years. There's a lot of schwitzing when you do gymnastics, a lot of hard training.
You've got a new word now to use.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a fun one. Who's your favourite Jew? You can pick me if you want.
I mean, there's been lots of prominent Jewish people along the years. I would probably say Einstein, because my degree's in engineering, okay. So he's a big deal for me, Einstein. And I know Rabbi Sachs passed away recently.
Yes.
And he was a phenomenal man.
Yes.
I met him on 3 separate occasions, I believe. And even in a room full of people, you have a quick exchange that was quite meaningful. I know he's a big loss to the Jewish community, and indeed the international community as well. His influence spread far and wide. And I think that was because of the wisdom the man possessed, and there was a spirituality there. He was able to touch your soul quite quickly.
Yeah,
and always
gave to everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I also think as well, he could speak about politics without being political, which is a very rare skill.
Yes, it's really a sort of tragic loss and shock actually to the Jewish community, both in the UK and around the world actually. I mean, his influence was way beyond just the UK. Shaun, I want to know more about you actually. You've got such an interesting story. You come from a poor background. You were homeless at one point. Mm-hmm. You're part of a minority community. You're not a typical contender for the Conservative Party to be the mayoral candidate for the Conservative Party. What drew you to the Conservative Party?
I think there's two things I'd say. I think I am typical. I think the notion that working class people are not Tories are wrong. Let's look at the last election. Working class people rejected Jeremy Corbyn. Let's go back in history. Working class people rejected the Labour Party time and time again. So I think the fact that people from working class background vote Conservative is not extraordinary. It would be fair to say someone from my particular community, that's a much bigger jump. But I think for me, I've always worked in my own community, and I wanted my community to not have welfare as its income. You know, I wanted the sky to be the limit. I wanted my community to be free to make decisions, to be family-centred, to be faith and personally driven, and none of those things are of the left, and for me they're all of conservatism. Right. And the Conservative Party embodies that for me. I want my community to be independent, to be strong, to have the notion that they should give back. So I did a lot of youth work. I ran my own youth charity for years, and I used to say to those young people, I cannot solve your poverty for you, but I can help you to solve it for yourself. if you come from any kind of disadvantaged background, you must have ambition. I cannot give you the result. And it's the difference between equality in outcome, which I think is impossible, versus equality in opportunity. You know, give me and you the same start point, and I'll use my talents, my drive, you use your talents, your drive, let's see where we get to. And for me, that was really important for my community, because my community were being treated as a chosen victim. We all champion. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn even said it. He said, no, only I can release the talent in the black community. My mother was furious. She said to me, what does he think I've been doing for the last 70 years, if not trying to release the talent in my children and in my community? And I think the idea that you're self-driven, you're family-focused, you're about ambition, you're about the future, I think is vital for all communities, and particularly poor.
And that's what those ideas and those ideals brought you to politics?
Yeah, absolutely, because I was doing youth work, I was helping people get away from crime, get away from drugs, get into employment. But you have to have an ethos behind that. I did that for more than 20 years. And in order to make that happen, you have to have a belief. Because every day it's tested. Every day someone says to you, why don't the government just give me more money? And in certain cases, they absolutely should. But in other cases, you should do more for yourself, and I'm going to help you do that. Right. So without that belief, you can't keep that going for 20 years. Right.
And one thing that the black community have faced for decades is the issue of racism, and sadly also for the Jewish community, racism and anti-Jewish hatred and bigotry is something that we've surprisingly had to face in 21st century Britain. I actually remember, and by the way, it's also, I feel it's so important also to caveat this by saying the Jewish community also feel exceptionally blessed living in the UK. I think we do feel it's one of the most tolerant countries out there. It's been incredibly good to the Jewish community, Britain has, and a place of just opportunity and freedom and acceptance. But at the same time, there has been an alarming rise in anti-Semitism over the last few years and decades. And I mean, I actually remember in 2014, Israel was engaging in a defensive war with Hamas in the Middle East. And there was a massive spike in anti-Semitic attacks here in the UK. And I actually felt nervous walking down the street wearing one of these in London in 2014. I sort of want to ask that, how do we explain, do you think there's a way to sort of explain what's gone on, what's happened? Why is there this sudden, rise in anti-Jewish hatred?
I'd say two things. I think one is definitely based on ignorance. Obviously as someone from the black community, I've experienced a huge amount of racist ignorance, and this anti-Semitism is rooted in a racism, a real heartfelt, ignorant racism. And of course, it's also about how people talk about these things, why, how and when do we challenge them. I think for me, one of the big things is this whole boycotting of Israel, students, Jewish students feeling unsafe on campus, not being able to attend lectures, not being able to talk. That for me is a modern interpretation. It makes people feel that they can do these things. And I think the other thing about anti-Semitism, where it's quite unique, it's ancient. It's been going for a long time. And when you're a young guy and you grow up in London, it's a surprise to you how ancient anti-Semitism is. I remember I went to Poland, went on March of the Living, and when you're in Krakow and you're talking to people and they're telling you stories and taking you to museums and showing you 800 years of anti-Semitism, even now, even with the knowledge I have, that was a shock to me. And I think that's why today we've got to fight it. You talked about 2014 and how pressured you felt and how privileged the Jewish community as well as the black community is to be in this country. But it doesn't mean that we must preserve that space. We have to fight for it. We mustn't be complacent, because there's forces outside of our communities, in political parties, in your local pub, who would change that around. And I'm committed to fighting that, if only because I know how it feels.
Well, what can we do about it? Is there anything we can actually do?
I think there's three things we can really do. Firstly is the legal piece. What do we do legally about anti-Semitism, about all hate crime? I myself recently have had to file something with the police around hate crime. What do you do about that? And we should keep that pressure up. Make sure people understand it's not acceptable. The second piece is about education. When I went to Yad Vashem, I cannot tell you the emotional tweak that pulls on your humanity, because you're stood there in that museum, you're looking at baby shoes, you're reading people's last letters, you're seeing luggage that have been left behind. And it becomes quite easy to imagine your own family in that position. And that level of education is powerful. It's very important. And when I was in City Hall and we did our service, we had a survivor come and speak to us, and again, it gave it real life. It wasn't just a statistic, it wasn't a story, it was a real life. And I think that conversation needs to be had so you can defeat people who are deniers. You can defeat people who don't think it's still alive today. And the other piece as well is to celebrate communities. I happen to be a card-carrying, church-going Christian, and that's fine, and you're a young Jewish man. Let's celebrate what we have in common. Ironically, it was an imam who said to me, we're all children of the book. And he was saying to me that we should be reaching out to each other, not pushing each other away. And what that lets me know, if you're a Jain, a Sikh, a Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever it is, let's work on what we have together. London is probably the most faithful city in the world. Let's build on that. Let's talk about our faith and what comfort it gives us and what structure it gives to our communities. I think the constant positive exchange between faiths is what will defeat racism, anti-Semitism in the long run.
Absolutely, and I really agree with that point you've said about education. And of course, one thing that's actually really rocked the Jewish community recently is the whole anti-Semitism Labour Party kind of debacle and saga under Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes.
You know, how do you have a historic, globally respected political party that can descend into this?
I think it really damaged the history, the standing of the Labour Party. You had the leader of the Labour Party sharing platforms with Holocaust deniers, you know, terrorist organisations, and then on top of that, you had this constant demonisation of Israel, which for me it signified just how wrong it was. And at the head of this, of course, you had Jeremy Corbyn. But what it really showed is that it went down through the party. It was rotten to the core, and I think that was a real worry to the Jewish community. And many people approached me through this whole debacle saying, what's happened to the Labour Party? Is this right? What will you say against it? And I think we all need to push back against that. Yes, for me, politically, it'd be great to point a finger at the Labour Party, but actually something deeper than that.
Do you think they should have, Labour should have suspended Jeremy Corbyn?
I mean, a suspension, for me, it doesn't do enough. But when I see Labour and their inability to deal with this, it's because there's so much support for it inside the machine, isn't it? That's why. Yes, we could all focus on Jeremy Corbyn, and yes, they could suspend him, they could expel him, and that's fine. But what do they do about when things are tabled at conference? What do they do as elected Labour politicians? Warm words are lovely, but let's take an action. For instance, Sadiq Khan has talked a lot about the Jewish community supporting them, some very warm words. Well, Al-Quds, why don't we ban the march? You want to talk about hate crime? That's a pre-planned annual hate crime.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about Sadiq Khan because some people in the Jewish community feel like, you know what, he wasn't a staunch, outwardly vocal ally of Jeremy Corbyn. On the other hand, he still campaigned for Labour at the last general election. How do you feel about how he handled the whole Corbyn anti-Semitism saga?
Just be clear, Sadiq Khan is not responsible for things that Jeremy Corbyn has said. That wouldn't be fair. But he signed Jeremy Corbyn's papers to become leader. He campaigned hard for Jeremy Corbyn in the last election, and he needs to look at himself and why he done that. So it'd be easy for me to sit here and say, yes, Sadiq Khan, this, that, and the other, but look at his actions. Again, I go back to the Al-Quds in particular. We've had lots of warm words, fantastic. Take some action. The one action you actually could take, do it. Do it. Demonstrate to people that you're actually here to defend their liberties, defend their physical safety, because that's certainly what I would do.
Yeah. Israel. Have you ever been?
I have been to Israel.
Yeah.
I have.
And what did you make of it?
There's a few things. I was fascinated at the diversity of the population. I really was. I had some of the deepest conversations that I've ever had. I spoke to an Orthodox rabbi. We had such a deep conversation. He invited me for dinner so we could continue.
Oh, yeah?
and we did that. I really love the high-tech nature of the place. My degree's in engineering. Everybody knows I love anything computers, anything technical. And we visited a couple of firms, incredible levels of technological development. and also just a great business capital. And I think one of the things I would want to do as mayor immediately is visit Israel on a trade delegation, immediately, because I think there's such synergies between what Israel's trying to do with its economy, to be a visitor economy. You go to places like Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, big visitor economies, same as London. And also London's trying to build a tech hub, a sort of advanced future employment base, and I think there's a great synergy, so I'd be straight over to Israel to make those connections, to see what knowledge, what investment we could swap to move forward.
That sounds great. Do you feel like you understand why Israel's so important to Jewish people in the UK, I mean around the world, and I guess in this case in London?
I think so, but here's the thing I'd say to any community. When you come from a community like mine, you understand the idea of what it is to be outside of the mainstream. So what I want to do is make all communities mainstream. And the way in which you do that is just listening. You go and you hear and you understand. I have some affinity, some understanding of the pain and the anxiety that anti-Semitism causes. I have some idea of the positive things that the Jewish community want to do, both here and abroad. But you need a community to continue to feed that message. And we are at our best when we have an open ear, when we say, okay, let me know. Let me know what is it you need, what is it you want, what is it you'd like. To go back to your question, I think for the Jewish community, the concept of home is very important. So you have here, Britain, you're at home, this is your home. In the same way, it's my home. But having a homeland for a group of people, a community of people, a nation of people who've suffered hundreds and hundreds of years of persecution becomes symptomatic, becomes really important. If it all happened again, you'd have somewhere to go, is really important. And that's a unique thing about immigrant communities, isn't it? We have a home and we have a home. Yeah. And I think for the Jewish community, that home has become very important. And in modern times, with the rise of anti-Semitism, again, I can see how Israel is more on the minds now of Jewish people than in recent years, definitely.
Absolutely. I'd now like to shift to this issue you spoke about earlier about diversity. Because there's a lot of talk about how conflict between Jewish people and Arab or Muslim people in the Middle East. But as you actually said earlier, there's actually so much that should unite Jewish and Muslim people in terms of their theology, the way they understand the world, cultural similarities. But on the other hand, there's a lot of concern, exactly as you said, about issues of education, people not having exposure, I guess, to each other's faiths and communities, and so they build up these preconceived notions about each other. And I'm a massive believer that education is so important. And I want to ask, London has a very big Jewish population, a very big Muslim population. Do you think there's anything that can be done, that the mayor could do, to sort of, bridge divides between these two communities, who I feel like have potential to work more closely than they are at the moment?
There's three things I'd say. So firstly, there's the practical, the physical. I think as Mayor of London, you should take a trip to all the nations. So you should go to Israel. And it would be on the back of the new peace deals that are being set up all the time with the UAE, etc. You would be celebrating, you'd be part of that. You'd be making London part of it as a representative. Go to Israel, go to these nations. The second part is as well, seek out the religious leaders in Britain who are on the right side of the argument as far as you're concerned. And the last piece I'd say as well, when we talk about faith, make sure you talk about faith and what it, in a way, it means to people, a broad spirituality. One of the best things about being in London, you can find a great mosque, a great gurdwara, a great church on the corner of nearly every street. Yeah. Visit those places, ask those communities to come together and demonstrate it. Because what you want them to do, you want them to take hold of the bull by the horns and not the mayor. They should lead it, but the mayor should start the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the last topics I want to discuss with you is actually about your faith, because my Jewish faith is extremely important to me, and I'm actually a bit concerned about the declining role of faith throughout the Western world, to be honest. I mean, I think about the things that faith brings me, personal redemption and comfort and hope, but also like on a communal level. It brings people together as a community to do good things, for each other, and to even expand beyond that. I wanted just to talk to you a bit about your own Christian faith, and also, beyond that, if you think there's anything that can be done, perhaps as mayor, to encourage more, faithful living and faithful communities.
I mean, let's say on a personal level, I became Christian as an adult. So my mother's a Christian, and you know, you go to church. The minute you're old enough to leave, you're off. I came back and I did a thing called a life course and decided I'd become a Christian and I give my life to Jesus and just sort of get on with it. I challenge something you said though. London is the most faithful place in all of the country. I think actually in all of Europe. The huge amounts of people are Sikhs, Jains, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, and all the shades of faith in between. And I think that's important because it gives a real personal comfort. My faith for me personally is a comfort. It's a family tradition. It's a tradition in which I raise my children. I don't make them be Christians. That's a decision they'll make when they get older or not, but it's certainly the tradition I'm raising them in. It makes sense of the world for me. My love of charity comes from the tenets of my book. The Bible is full of charity and says Christians should be charity. So that's where that comes from for me. The thing I would say about faith's role in public life is twofold. People of faith must always make the space for people of other faiths or no faith. I think that's important, and I think London's particularly good at that. We have hundreds of churches, synagogues, temples, but as someone with no faith, you still have places to go, you know, museum, town hall, whatever it is, and I think we need to maintain that. I think the other pieces as well, though, faith gives us an opportunity to talk to people's deeper well-being. I mean, I remember in the first lockdown going to a Indian restaurant in Alperton, and between the Indian restaurant in Alperton, the local temple and the local church, they were giving 500 meals per day. They were just going at it, and that's a demonstration of where faith, community, and activity come together. If we can build on that, we can make London a safer, fairer, more equal city to live in, and I'm always up for that.
Alistair Campbell famously said, "We don't do God." When someone was asking him about, you know, Tony Blair's religious beliefs. Do you think politicians in 21st century Britain should feel comfortable, at ease, even encouraged to talk about God, their spirituality?
Absolutely. Look, if
I agree.
Look, you've got to let people be who they are. So if you're gay, straight, black, white, young, old, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, you've got to let people be who they are. That's how you know you're dealing with a whole person and not just some manufactured version of them that's sanitized so they can slip past you and then do what they want to do anyway. That's the first thing. And sometimes an aggressive secularism can be terrifying to people of faith. And I know people who are watching this who have no faith, they don't want that to happen. And people who have some faith don't want it to be pushed on other people. We need to make a space for everybody to operate. So Alistair Campbell was talking about a time that I think has gone.
Yeah.
If you look at who's in London now, people want to practice their faith. One of our proudest boasts as a nation, as a group of people in Britain, is that you are free to follow the faith of your choice, and that should be supported. And that's if you have.
But more than that, I think to articulate it publicly, you know.
For many years, I was led to believe that you're not allowed to talk about your faith publicly. I decided that I would. You know, win, lose or draw, it's part of who I am and I'm happy to do it. I've had people tell me off, you know, and I remember saying to someone, well, imagine I talked about my black experience, would you tell me off?
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is just as important to me as my experience of being a black man. And, you know, and that's what it is for people. And of course...
And people can take it or leave it, they have a choice.
And that's the beauty.
The ballot box,
That's the beauty, just walk away.
Yeah.
And the thing about faith, it is largely, in the public arena, a very positive thing, certainly in the context of London.
Absolutely. Right, final thing, congestion charge. Can you please do something about it? So I know there's been like a hike recently. I mean, it feels like it's madness right now at this time of, you know, economic challenge under the, you know, the pandemic.
So let me lay out the facts to you. So first and foremost, it's the ULEZ, ultra low emission zone. The mayor is going to extend that right out to North and South Circular. I'm opposed to that. I don't think you'll get the environmental cleanup and you'll be giving people a huge tax. Secondly is a congestion charge. The mayor fibbed slightly when he said the government told him to do it. They did not. What they said was, you need to come forward with ideas to raise money. He never came forward with ideas, so they gave him a list of things. He picked one that is politically advantageous to him. My point is this, no matter who suggests we extend a congestion charge, I said no. I said no then, I say no, and I'll say no in the future. The other piece is the mayor has currently increased the congestion charge to £15 a day, 7 days a week, and to 10 a.m. I will wind all of those things back to their original level, because at the time when London is under such economic pressure, to punish us like that is unbelievable. People are losing their businesses, people are losing their employment. I want to turn that situation around. And lastly, people are calling it a worship tax. People are finding it hard to run their mosque, their gurdwara, their temple, their synagogue, their church, because now they have to pay to drive around at times that they wouldn't normally do. If you're a churchgoer, Sunday morning, paying is incredible that you have to pay the congestion charge. And the mayor has done that out of sheer spite. It is not really achieving anything for London other than looking after your family, looking after your community difficult. And let's be clear, I've talked to people in the charitable world who have to move minibuses and children and elderly people around, and it's a problem for them too. And it's hitting working people the hardest. So I absolutely will wind that back, because you can achieve the environmental uplift we need in other ways without passing the cost on to Londoners, and also you can run TfL properly without passing the cost on to Londoners. We need a change at the top.
Well, I think that will please quite a lot of the London voters, Jewish or not. But Shaun, thank you so much for making the time to speak to JTV. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure being on.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.